Are you a blind or visually impaired athlete? You know the importance of protein in your diet. Get a free egg separator from our friends at The Blind Kitchen. Just send your mailing address to info@theblindkitchen.com. That's info@theblindkitchen.com. Along with your mailing address, be sure to mention Eyes Free Sports in the subject line. Hey there, and welcome to episode 164 of the Eyes Free Sports podcast. My name is Greg Lindberg. Here on this episode, we have a guest from the great state of Virginia, and this gentleman has done some pretty cool things when it comes to track and field, as well as blind soccer. And he's actually currently a member of the U.S. national blind soccer team. So let's go ahead now and hit the pitch and start kicking our way toward episode 164 of the Eyes Free Sports podcast. Okay, so my guest here on this episode of the podcast is Antoine Craig, and Antoine is a highly accomplished track and field athlete, as well as a member of the U.S. national blind soccer team, and so much more I know that I'm missing that we'll get into. Antoine, welcome to Eyes Free Sports.
Yes, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely, it's an honor to have you on. Just with your background, I know you're, as far as education, you're knee-deep in a Ph.D. program. So you got, your hands in a lot of cookie jars, as they say, right?
Yes. That's always like the thing that they tell you, like, don't spread yourself too thin. Don't put all your marbles in one basket. But what happens when you actually take that advice? That's my life.
For sure. Oh yeah, it's amazing though, your resume, which we'll dive into here shortly. So why don't we just kind of kick things off here, Antoine? If you just want to talk about kind of where you were born and your formative years.
So I was actually born in Cleveland, Ohio, at the Ronald McDonald Hospital. I was like, that's like always a cool little like fact, and I'm like, that's so cool. I wonder if my mom got fries or something afterwards. But then by the time I was like 5, we ended up moving out of Cleveland, and she moved me to Atlanta, Georgia, and that's where I was raised.
Gotcha. So Hotlanta, yeah. So did you grow up a
Yes.
Braves fan, or?
Yeah, so like as a teen, I would work for the Braves over the summers and the spring, because they would always have like different various jobs you could do temporarily. So that was definitely in my rotation of like teenage jobs. So I
Yup.
guess I was a fan for sure.
Nice. Very cool. And any siblings?
Yes, I have 2 brothers and a sister, and I am the oldest out of the bunch.
Oh, wow. Wow. So you had to do some kind of, sibling mentoring or growing up?
Yeah, it's more like parenting. When you're the oldest, you get a raw deal. Like, especially my mom, she was a single parent. So, you when you're the oldest, you get all of the responsibility, but you also get ignored the most. So you have to learn how to like crush down your needs and make sure your sister and your brother get on the bus and they eat and all of these things. And yeah, you start to realize that like you're not living as a child. You're kind of living as like an adult child, which is just challenging.
So as far as your visual impairment, talk to me about your eye condition.
So I have a condition called retinitis pigmentosa, aka RP. And for me, it started like I guess it really started in grade school. I started having like different struggles, like with seeing a chalkboard, like sensitivity to light, like headaches. As I reflect back, not knowing what was going on, and like I didn't get like diagnosed till I was older. Like as I reflect back, like I had episodes of vertigo, like in my childhood, and I never really understood what was going on. And I remember like vividly, like me telling my mom, like, I can't see the chalkboard, I can't see the book. And she would always go, like, everyone else can see the chalkboard and read the book. Why can't you? And, like just, you have sometimes a dismissive parent, but yeah, I was really struggling like early on. But as I got into my teenage years, I started realizing that I was having challenges with night vision. So, me and my friends would, especially growing up in Georgia, like we have woods, a lot of woods everywhere. So we would always take these shortcuts to woods. And I would ask my friends, like, can you guys see? And they were like, yeah. They would be able to see by like moonlight, but if it was dark for me, it was dark.
Hmm.
So that's when I realized something was wrong. And then I started kind of taking it on myself to kind of make myself way to a specialist up in Georgia. And that was a slow, grueling process of all the testing until they figured out exactly what was going on.
I see. Wow. And then, like, how old were you when you actually got the diagnosis?
I was around like 27, 28. Yeah, I was older.
Hmm. Interesting.
hmm
And were you
Yeah,
able?
they couldn't figure it out. They thought I had cataracts at first. And when I was in Georgia, I was kind of excited about it because, after reading it up, I was like, oh, that's just a little surgery. I'll be back. So I ended up leaving Georgia and moving up to Virginia with my mom to go see a specialist that they had up here in Richmond. No, not in Richmond. It was in Newport News. And yeah, when I got in there, she kind of delivered the news to me in like the worst way ever. And she was like, "No, you don't just have cataracts. You have RP, and there's no cure." And then I was like, "Wait, like, what does that mean?" She was like, "Yeah, you're probably gonna go blind." And you do you know one of those feelings like how like you think you're normal your whole life, and you don't really like suspect anything like that would ever happen. Like you can't even understand what that means for you. You're just like you're shocked. You're like, damn, I'm about to go blind. Like what does that even mean? Like what does that look like? Like what's next? Like what do I do? Like you don't know anything. So you become lost.
Yeah, and probably thinking like, oh, something like that will never happen to me. You know, that kind of mindset too.
hmm
That yo,
hmm
yo.
Yeah, you just see it on TV and stuff, and you're so removed from, and maybe that was a little privilege that I had, but you're just so removed from those things, you just don't like, yeah, you don't realize like, yeah, you could end up with a disability.
Exactly. Yeah. So as far as your education, so were you mainstream then, like in K through 12 school and growing up?
I never went to a blind school, and yes, some of my like teammates and all of my other visually impaired peers, they were like, "Oh, what school did you went to?" And I'm like the regular school. So
Right.
yeah, I'm one of those people like, soon as I got my cane, I just kind of was like, my first mobility instructor, she was like, well, there's no right or wrong way to do this. That's what she told me at the time. Okay, don't judge me, but that's what she told me at the time.
Hmm.
And that was good news because it was like I'm one of those people like she gave it to me and I just started doing laps around my block. And then I got it and I was like, and I took it and I just ran with it. And I didn't even know about schools or anything like that until I started meeting more blind people. And then I was like, oh wait, there was another way. But yeah, I didn't go that way.
So I know beyond high school, I know you've had quite the educational journey as well, if you want to talk about that.
Once I got the diagnosis, I landed here in like Newport News, Virginia, and from that point, I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life because you can't work, you can't even really walk anywhere because you don't have like the tools, right? You don't have any blind skills. So I met someone and they were like, "Well, why don't you go to college?" And for me, like I don't know about you, but like me growing up. I wasn't one of those like, you're gonna go to college kids. My mom was always like, hey, as soon as you turn 15, you got a job, and that's what you did. You worked retail, and you just that's just what we did. We didn't college was not in my family. Like no one in my family went to college.
Hmm.
So that wasn't even in my like imagination of going, So, I ended up enrolling to community college and like it was so funny. Like when I had my first advisor, she was like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And it just probably flagged her, right? Because I was like, I'll probably go into radiology because back then, everybody was talking about like, oh, becoming a radiologist is good money, good pay, and I was like, yeah, I think I could do this. This is my opportunity.
Yo.
And she basically like tore me apart. Like she Googled like the roles and responsibilities of a radiologist. She was like, oh, they got to lift over something, 100 something pounds. Okay, you can probably do that. You got to be able to do this, can't do that, can't do that. And she just went down the list. And she was like, no, I don't think this is a good choice for you. You need to go back and figure out what you want to do. And that began my journey of trying to figure out, like, okay, what the heck am I going to do? And so that kind of depressed me actually, because she wasn't nice about it. And I'm still trying to figure out, and I still have no blind skills at this point. So I'm just trying to figure things out. This lady just put up a brick wall from this one thing that I thought was going to be a good idea because it was going to make me some money.
Yo.
And then so I Googled, I was like, jobs for blind people. And then the first thing that popped up was lawyer. And I was like, no way, no, no. That is not happening. Like
Oof.
that's a lot of reading.
Yeah.
And so I just started doing like, the class exploration thing. And then I landed in my first like psychology class and I absolutely loved it. And in my past, kind of what prompted like in my past, like for middle school, I ended up having to go to an alternative school because as you know, like, you're growing up, you're going blind, and so your grades are bad, and then everyone thinks that it is, so you end up not doing so well. School has become like a point of contention in your life and you start having all these struggles. So I end up going to like an alternative school where we would actually have therapy like twice a week.
Hmm.
And that's when I was first introduced to like therapists. And I remember my therapist to this day, like Dr. Snow and Dr. Fraud, they were like so cool. And I remember thinking about how like seeing all the other kids, they had all these behavior issues and me thinking like, I'm nothing like these kids. Like I'm not dealing with some of the things they were dealing with. And hindsight being 2020, like no, this boy is just going blind. So he's frustrated and he's just angry and he's just all of these things. And like I can't get the help when I need. Nobody's hearing me, nobody's seeing me. So that kind of prompted my like, well, maybe like, psychology might be a cool thing for me. So that's what I did. And I ended up working really hard and my when I did my first community college, then I ended up like applying to VC, which was a bigger school, and that got me into Richmond, and I got accepted, and that's where I did my undergrad at Virginia Commonwealth University.
Nice.
I know it was like a very long-winded like first section of my education.
No, you're good. I know we are recording this during the NCAA basketball tournament, and I think I saw VCU in the bracket.
Yes, they were. They were.
They did lose, though,
That was
right?
Oh man, I don't know. I can't keep up. I told you I'm not human right now. I need to pay more attention to like other things.
The world.
Because I'm just yeah, because I'm so locked in trying to
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
no,
you
I
know.
get it. I believe they did lose. Unfortunately, sorry to bring up a sensitive subject, but
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
no.
Yes. So that's where I went to my undergrad and then I end up, continuing my education. Well, after undergrad, I got my first grown-up job with the Department of Defense, and I actually hated it.
Hmm.
And that's what motivated me. Because when I got there, it was so stuffy, this big stuffy corporate job. And I realized that there was a whole bunch of old people who were just there waiting on retirement. And they was just like, hey, don't touch nothing. I know you got cool ideas. You got all this youth and ambition. You need to kill it right now. Okay. Just ride this thing out and collect your check. And I just felt like I could be doing more. And that's when I like decided, I was going to go back and get my master's and become a therapist. So I did that. I got into VCU again for clinical mental health counseling. And then I end up getting my master's in that. And now I'm, finally fully licensed. And, that's what I was doing this whole time in this gap. But somewhere in that little gap of becoming a therapist, which was like a goal and a dream, which I was so happy of accomplishing, I was able to be approached to take an opportunity to do a PhD, which I never wanted to do.
Right, right. Wow. And then, so what school are you doing your PhD from?
That's a great question. So there's a story in the whole journey. So I went to VCU. So they're this one of my motivations is that they're kind of limited on their diversity, like just the makeup of the city. So I end up like realizing like when I was seeing clients that this was a struggle because I was running into like a bunch of different type of people and I'm like, okay, you know, you have to like become a worldly person. And, just in this little bubble I put myself in, like I didn't have a lot of access to that. So I was like, well, what's a good way to do it? And I was like, well, there's a HBCU right down the street. So I looked into Virginia State and they actually had it was a PhD in clinical health psychology. And me being an athlete, I thought I was like, this is a good coupling. And I was like, and it'll be able to get the diversity and all the things. They checked a lot of boxes and it was like not too far. It's like 30 minutes from my house. So I ended up enrolling there and I got accepted. And I was like, it would be just my luck. I got accepted into this PhD program. Like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have like, had a roadblock. Like that's how my life works. Like all the things that I'm not 100% certain of, they end up working out, and it kind of forces me down that path anyway. So yes,
Right.
so now I'm at Virginia State working on my PhD in clinical health psychology. And I'm doing my doctoral practical internship at the Children's Hospital at VCU. So it's kind of full circle, actually.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. That's really amazing.
Mhm.
And then yeah, just as far as your current work as a therapist, do you serve kids, adults, pretty much all ages, or what kind of demographic?
So if you asked me like personally, I would be like, I cannot stand kids, because they're so tough, because there's
Right.
so much going on, and then there's no handbook on how to be a blind therapist, believe it or not. I kept running into little issues, and I would ask my professors, and she was like, Antoine, in my whatever years, and I have this conversation with many of my professors. They say, in my X many of years, I have never been introduced to someone who's blind, who's made it this far in education and who's ever became a blind therapist. And she said, the problem that you're having is that you may have to be the person to write the book. And I was like, that's a lot of pressure. And I'm like, that's this is terrible. Um,
Hmm.
so I've come to understand that actually might be some truth to that. So kids are a lot because their energy, they're all over the place. You can't really, they're really spontaneous. So you can't really control what they're doing. There's some things you can do. So they're my least favorite. But I love my teens, like from 11 on up. I love it. In adolescence, which is like my college age, my teenage, all the way up into the 20s. That's my favorite group.
Interesting. Huh.
Mhm.
And I am curious too, like as far as challenges, like do you find it challenging, not being able to get like visual feedback on facial expressions, body language, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I know that's part of our teachings, right? We need to pay attention to all of those things, but you'll be surprised how much people tell you through their voice, just the inflections of the voice and the intentionality. Because some people like try to tell you things without telling you just by the way they say it.
True.
So
Yeah.
just learning how to listen and understand like, hey, what this mean? They may come in with a lower resonance comparing it to previous voices they may have. So just really having an intimate understanding of your client and what their voice is telling you, it's like a little magic trick. It's probably some linguistics in there that I probably need to study a little bit more in there, but I that's how I like catch everything. And it works out very well, like because you could really tell when someone's not telling you the truth.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. Yep.
Hmm.
And I'm curious, do you
Hmm.
do virtual, in person, both?
I do both. I do both. I love in person. I love in person because it gives you a little bit more feedback because not only are you just not listening for the voice, you're listening for, body movement, fidgeting, all of those things. You can hear all of those, so you can really tell a person you may ask them a tough question and they kind of squirm and hear them shimmy. You're like, okay, like you're getting that feedback.
Yo.
So I love the in person. It works really, really good. For what how my vision is set up, which is not at all. But I do everything. There's no rhyme or reason on which one I prefer.
Right. Right. Wow. Hey, just
Mhm.
kudos to you. Hats off to you on the work you're doing and the PhD. They say it's only a tiny percentage of folks that ever get a PhD. So,
Yeah, no, it's only a couple of people that are crazy enough to go do it. Like it's like too much education. There is a cap, like
right.
but I tell when I give people like advice, like on a serious note, there's only a handful of things that you really need a PhD for, or even to go to school for. So just being mindful of that, like, try not to waste the money and just save the money. And if it's something you really need it, yeah. If you want a business degree, I say no. Because you could start a business with next to nothing, which is Google and Gemini or ChatGPT. You guys can have at it. You can start $1 million corporation like in a weekend. So, just be mindful of that. That would be my advice to people.
Yeah, very well said. So let's transition then to sports and athletics. So as a kid growing up, were you pretty active, moving around quite a bit?
Yeah, I was one of those kids who are like, I was good at everything. I'm kind of still like that now. Like, I was lucky enough, like my school, my high school, we were we were like one of those schools like where our PE was like softball, football, like it was all the sports. So you were always doing some kickball. So you become like pretty athletically inclined because you were forced to. And then we would have something called field day, which I know is foreign to kids now. And it was like our school's Olympics. And it's like that was your time to shine. Like, all right, line it up. Who won it? And you would get medals. And it wasn't participation medals. It was actual first place, second place,
Yeah,
and
I
third
had to earn
place.
it. Yeah.
You had to earn it. So, you earned your stripes during that time. And so I think that's what kind of started my journey into, like the athletics and allow me to be good at different things.
Right, right. Interesting. And then as far as like adaptive athletics, designed for the blind and visually impaired, I'm curious, when did you kind of discover that there's a whole other world out there, for blind sports?
See, that wasn't until I was later in like my 30s.
Hmm.
And I didn't know. Like I didn't know at all. And then, I started to try to work out once I got here to Virginia because, I uprooted myself and I'm here and I don't have any friends, I don't have anything. So I started making like classmates and I actually went to the gym with a classmate and I was like running on a treadmill and just kind of holding on and not even knowing one day she told me she was like, "Hey, I seen these people on TV and they had their hands tied together and they ran together." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Yeah, like I seen it. Like you want to try?" And, at my school, they had this like indoor track around the gym.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Okay, we could try it." So we took a shoestring out of my shoe and we just kind of wrapped it around her hand and my hand, and then we started jogging. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but as a cane user, especially like a newbie cane user, you're so limited in your mobility and the speed you can move and just that feeling of being free because you're so restricted. Like that was the first time in a while, like I felt like liberated. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like moving so fast. And I loved it. Like I didn't want to stop running.
Hmm.
And I was like so happy. And then she knew of a race that was coming up because she was a runner. She knew of a race that was coming up was a Broad Street Mile. And I was like, I think I could run a mile. It was like a couple of months away. And I was like, I think I could do that. That probably wouldn't be too hard. And I never ran before. I wasn't a runner. Like running is to me, like running is like, why are you running for no reason? That just didn't make sense to me back then. Like
Right.
I have understanding for it now, but back then it didn't compute. It was just weird. And I end up we ended up signing up for that race, but then she ended up, backing out on me. And then we ended up finding this adaptive sports organization, Sportable. She reached out to them and they contacted me. They was like, "Hey, we hear you're trying to like run." And I was like, "Yeah." So they came out and they sent a guide and they broke a tether and all these things. And they taught me how to run as a vision impaired person. And that day we ran 3 miles. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing ever. And ever since then, I was kind of addicted to adaptive sports. And that was like my first introduction to adaptive sports.
Wow. Wow. That's so cool. So you were kind of bitten by the bug and knew like this is something you wanted to pursue and really focus on.
Yes. Yes. And this organization, they were kind of pushing me into like, I ran that mile race and I ran like we did pretty good. We ran like a 7:40 something. That was my first mile. And they were like, "Oh my gosh." They was like, "Yeah, there's a 5K coming up." And I was like, "Okay, cool, let's go." They was like, "Hey, guess what? There's an 8K coming up." And I was like, "Okay, cool, let's go." They was like, "Hey, it's a 10K." And I was like, "Wait a minute, okay, this
The
I
number
see what's
keeps going
happening
up.
here."
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I finally got to I had a friend that was actually in the organization as well, and he wanted to do a half marathon. And he was like, "Hey, would you do it with me?" And I was like, "Ah." I was like, that's a lot. Because me, I would always pay attention to those races. Like when you would run the 10K, like shortly after the half marathon, the marathon would start. And then maybe like 10 minutes into the run, you'll always start to hear the ambulances. Like it never fails. And it's because like somebody would inadvertently like overdress or underhydrate or overhydrate. And then they would just end up having to have an ambulance. And I was just like, nah, this is not, that's marathons are for crazy people. And I was just like, absolutely not. And then, of course, like me being the type of person I am, I couldn't tell them no. So I was like, fine. And then I started training, training and training, training for that. And that was the most running I've ever done in my life. And during that training, somebody told me that it was like, hey, Antoine, listen, if you run your half marathon under 2 hours, you'll never have to run one again because most people don't run it under 2 hours, like for the first time, or most people don't run it under 2 hours ever. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. So literally that was my goal. As soon as that gun went off or when it was time to run, that was my goal. And I had to pace myself. And the funny thing is like throughout that training, I was having a hard time like consuming water and running. It was because it's very hard to like run and be able to like swallow and all of those things. It was tough. So I was teaching myself how to sip water. And by the time we got up to about 11 miles, I was able to just kind of sip water and to keep myself from like just cramping because you're moving that quick for that long, you're running for like almost 2 hours. You're gonna start feeling some stuff in your body that you need to tend to.
No doubt.
And
Yep.
yeah, and in that race, by the time I got to about the 10K mark, I started to feel like a little depletion in my battery. So I started switching from water, switching to electrolytes and Gatorade, and that started feeling better. But by the time I got to mile 8, I was like literally like one of the guys, because I had two guides. So I had one on my left, on my right hand, and I guide on my right hand, and I had one on my left hand that was free. So we had this crazy strategy that one of the guys would just run off to the table and they just bring back whatever I needed, and then we'll keep running. And that worked. That was working very well. So then, like, we got to this one station. He's like, hey, they got chocolate chip cookies. You want one? And I was like, and I was turning them down, but I got to mile 8 and I was like, yeah, 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 I'll take a cookie. So, so, so I ate this cookie and I never had a cookie that was so delicious. I don't know if it was the run or the baker, but this cookie was so good. And I ended up eating like four of these cookies during,
Wow. While
during
you
the
were
run.
running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. These hand-sized cookies. And we did so good on this run that I ended up completing the race in an hour and 56 minutes. So I end up making my goal of never having to run this half marathon ever again.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. So within four
Yes.
minutes or less, yeah, 3.5 minutes. Or
Yes. And that's forever in running time,
right.
by the way. And that's what motivated me. After that, I was pretty much done with running distance. I was like never again. And by the time that next season rolled around, Sporto had came to me, and that was right when the Rio Olympics had popped up, and it was like, hey, there's this guy named David Brown. We saw him, and he's a sprinter. Like, would you be willing to try it? And the U.S. The U.S. Paralympic team was having a clinic in our area. They was having a pop-up clinic, and it was like having people introduce them to different Paralympic track and field sports. So Sportable had connected that with us, and we ended up going to that event, and I started meeting some of the coaches, and that's how I got introduced to track and field.
I see. Interesting.
hmm So it's really like luck of the draw. I was really over the distances. I did not see myself going up in distance, but I was really like really interested in just moving to something shorter. It's something great when you could run for 2 hours and you move into an event to where it's only going to take you 11 seconds.
Right. Such a different mindset and the training, everything. It's, I'm sure, just so many differences there. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And yeah, that's such a great point too about trying, like you said, trying the half marathon and, realizing, well, maybe this isn't for me. A lot of times in life, we have to try things just to, cross off things we don't necessarily want to do, that eventually lead us to things that we do want to do. Right.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I think that's if I had anything for that's like a constant in my life is that I kind of just try different things. Like one thing that people don't really know is like my training, I cross train with rowing and rowing and cycling. But more importantly, like rowing, like I cross train with that. And then sometimes they have this like indoor where they have it every year. They have a mid-Atlantic erg sprints, and that's like the row machine. And I would just show up and I would just like win that competition in the para division every time. And these are guys who actually train in this event. Like that's like their meat and potatoes of what they do. And I would just show up and I would just like blaze them. And I was just like, they were like, oh my gosh, like what do you? I was like, "Bro, I don't even roll. Like I'm a sprinter." And they would blow people away. And I would just like walk away, take my medal. It was like this, like see you next year. And it was just like a fun thing that I just keep going. But like I have that ability because, I just try different things and I just try everything. And if it works, it works. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, no harm, no foul. But, I just give it a try.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great attitude to have. So then, in terms of some of the para track and field events, I know you've done some pretty a lot of accomplishments on that front. Anything specific you want to mention?
Yes. So, um, my track journey is so cool. Like I mentioned, like the individual, like his name was David. Like he was the fastest, he is the fastest guy in the country. He holds our record. And it was such a surreal moment. My very first track and field event, you know, like after training for like a couple of months, like I ended up going to Arizona and it was like this Desert Challenge Games. That's where you get like certified and everything like that. And I was just so excited. Like I show up with these TJ Maxx, like $15 like track and field spikes, and I have like these swim trunks on, and I'm like, yeah, let's go. I'm about to get it. Like we about to do it. And I noticed like everybody that's with me, like my team and then my guy, like everybody's acting really awkward and nervous. And I'm like, what is wrong with you guys? Like I'm excited. Like, man, we about to rip it. Let's go. Like, like I'm pumped. And then, and I never quite figure out like what's wrong with them. And then we get to the line, they start announcing everybody who's in your heat. They're like, in lane number one might be, Spain. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And then like in lane number two, China. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then lane number three, Antoine Craig. And I'm like, yeah, let's go, baby. And then lane number four, the fastest man, the reigning 100-meter champion, Dave. And I'm like, my very first race, I was like, oh my gosh, my heart just dropped because that's when I realized why everybody was being nervous and they was being hush hush and they didn't want to tell me because they didn't want me to get nervous or like bail out.
Oh, I
And I'm
see.
like, oh
Yeah.
my God. And
Wow.
I just remember my heart's beating out of my chest and that gun go off and then I just take off and I give it all I got. And then it was like boom, all I heard was them just go whoosh. And then I was just like, oh my God. And I'm like, how in the world am I going to get this fast? Like how? Like it seemed improbable. Because I'm coming from a distance sport and I'm fast compared to everybody else. See, I got second place in that race, but
Hmm.
it was just unreal. Like I ran like a 13.9 or something like that. And they were in the 11s. And I was like, bro, there's no way. There's no way. And I got a little discouraged. But the coolest thing that happened was that after that race, they came up to me and they did the coolest thing ever. Like they just like encouraged me. They was like, yo, keep going. Like you doing your thing. Like great job. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, and he ended up becoming my friend. And then fast forward, like, last year in 2024, I ended up becoming the fastest man. I ended up beating him. Like ended up beating him in 23 and 24. Those are 2 years. Like nobody was able to beat me. So I ended up becoming the 100-meter national champ like 2 years in a row. And that was like, it took me that long to beat him. It took me like almost 6 years to be able to beat him, to develop enough to get fast enough to beat him. But I ended up doing it. And that took a lot of hard work and a lot of determination. And so here we are. So that was like a huge accomplishment for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. And then did I read, was it the 2021 Paralympic, was it the trials I think you competed in?
Yes, I made it all to the 21 Paralympic trials. And the most interesting thing about that Olympic trials was that that was like during the COVID year. So it was, oh my gosh, it was like so brutal for us because, they closed out all the tracks and we had nowhere to train. And then my guy did not live in the state. So it was hard for us to meet. We couldn't fly and meet each other. So it just did not go well. We ended up getting to the line, and because we didn't have a lot of sync, we ended up like bumping into each other. So we didn't do very well, but we ended up getting second place. So I got a silver medal, which is, like, having to like look back on those things and like like restructure or reframe like what success looks like. Yes, to everyone else, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you have a silver medal in the Olympic trials. Like that's so dope." But to you in real time, you're like, you would bend it in half and fling it into the to the river if you could. And
Right.
it took some time to like to me adjust to that and reframe that failure as a success. But I was selected as an alternate to the games, which is good, which is really cool. But due to the COVID restrictions, I was not actually selected to go, but I was an alternate, so I wasn't able to go to Tokyo, and that was kind of a bummer because I worked really really hard. I started track and field as an older athlete, right? I didn't start sprinting until my 30s. So think about
Wow.
that. Like, you know, so I wasn't thinking about that timetable a little bit. I was, and I'm like, how long can I do this? You know, and I have to be able to I have to slow down at some point, right? The answer to that was no. But that's what I'm thinking in my head. And I really had to think about it. And that's kind of when I went into like a little bit of a little bit of a depression. And that's when a friend kind of introduced me. She was like, well, like don't quit. Like have you thought about trying like soccer? And she was like the USABA is having a tryouts. And I was like, soccer? Like, I don't know how in the world that's gonna work. And so of course, the motto of my life, hey, let's just try it. I wanted to get away from track and I thought it'd be a cool sport. So they ended up inviting me to a camp in up in Colorado Springs at the Olympic training facility there, and I absolutely hate it because remember I told you like I'm naturally good at a lot of things, but I tell you soccer is no joke. That is not something you could just pick up. It's just not. It's like I had two left feet or something. It was so weird.
Wow.
Um,
And did you play as a kid? Did you play any soccer growing up?
no,
Or
because I'm an American kid. We didn't soccer. We don't play no soccer. Did you ever grow up playing soccer? Did
I
you
did not. No.
see?
I know.
See, it just wasn't in our rotation of sports, so I was not introduced to it. All I knew was like I was really fast, and I hated it, and I dropped it for a little bit,
Hmm.
in 21 and 2022, and then I just kind of got back at track, and then for some reason, like I just kind of stuck with it as like practice is a practicing thing because I didn't give up. I just stuck with it, but I wasn't going to any more clinics or camps. I just kind of was like, yeah, I kind of suck at this. But I did like the fact that it was something new that I could do with the ball and I could like play with a friend, just a way to get out and, do something in my practices. And then I started, I don't know, I started to get better. And then I ended up like kind of meeting up with some of the guys or something. Like in one of the practices, they was like, hey, you should, try again. And they was having another open tryout and I was actually graduating with my master's. And I talked to the coach, and I was like, "Hey, there's a conflict in me making to the clinic, because the same day I needed to be there, I was actually graduating, and I ended up, getting a plane ticket that same day to fly out to go try out. And I graduated, ran across stage, and then I ran all the way to the airport, got to the flight. They canceled my flight because there was this random freak winter storm, and then I ended up having to buy another plane ticket out of pocket. And then I ended up catching that flight. The Delta flight flew all the way to San Diego, and I tried out and I crushed it. And I actually made the team. And I actually missed like 2 days of tryouts. So I was kind of at a disadvantage from the other guys. But the one thing that saved me was that I was super athletic. Like, nobody in the country, I'm the fastest, person in the country. So my athleticism was through the roof. I had some ball skills and my soccer IQ was decent. So, that allowed me to make the team. And, that's when I made my first national soccer team, and I actually was on my national track and field team. I was on two national teams at the same time. So that was a heck of an accomplishment.
Oh yeah, that's extremely rare and unusual to have, both wearing both hats at the same time like that.
Yes. And then that's what happened with me, going into the Paris Olympic trials is that at the time the soccer team. So this was an interesting thing. I had to get approval from my track coaches to play soccer. And they had, soccer was like, oh no, 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 we need you, we want you to play soccer with us. Cool. So I was like, got the approval. And then once I got on the soccer team, they were like, oh, well, they were kind of nudging me to choose, and they end up not selecting me that next following year because they knew I was going to go for the Olympic trials. So they end up putting me on ice, and I was so upset about that. But it allowed me to focus on those Olympic trials, the 2024 Paris Olympic trials, and this trials. This one was the hardest one because I actually my guide was one of my drivers. They end up being late, right? And so we ended up getting to my discus because I was actually throwing discus fun, and I got red carded because I was like 10 minutes late to that event,
Hmm.
and I got, disqualified from participating in the trials. And mind you, I had just came off with the 2021 Olympic trials where I had that failure, that we bumped to the race, and I've been training this long, and I was killing it. And this year, that year, that was an insane year because I had just came back from the Pan Am Games in 2023, where I ended up getting bronze, and then the Americas. So I was ranked number 3 in the Americas. So that's like all the South American countries included. So not only am I ranked number 1 in our country, I'm ranked number 3 in the Americas, including all those countries. So I was like number 8 in the world. So coming off of that, like this was my year, this was my games, and I was unfortunately not able to participate. So that crushed me, and I started to I started to want to give up because here I am, keep trying to make it to these big games, make it to the Olympic Games, and I keep running into these issues, and I don't know what to do. I'm frustrated, and so then, here I am now. I'm kind of like debating, like, do I retire from track? Do I keep with soccer? I'm really good at soccer now. We've been to tournaments in Mexico. We've played Romania, a tournament against Romania and US. We just got back from Costa Rica in December where we played a tournament and we end up getting third place, which was like our highest ranking tournament, which where our team is getting better. We're doing we're doing so good. And we got an automatic bid to the LA Olympics, the LA Olympic Games. And this is an opportunity for me to make these games, but I have in my heart this like unrecognized, unfulfilled, goal of making it in track. But I'm older, but still no one can beat me. So do I give up? That's the question. I have this conversation I need to have with myself. Like, do I give up or do I just push and kind of close that chapter on myself the right way and make that one more attempt and let Father Time tell me I can't, and not mentally limit myself. And I can admit it is me mentally telling myself that I I can't do it, or me wanting to stop. And the hardest part too is I train with this masters group called Pony Express. So our oldest member is 81 years old, and
Hmm.
our coach is he's in his 70s. He's like 72. And they're sprinters. They're literally like they sprint. And I'm like, dang, I don't think I can I can retire because they're still going, and that's the conundrum that I have within myself. So, I'm managing through that now, but the biggest thing that I'm realizing, after coming off the 2024 games, the thing that got me back on the straight and narrow, got me back into soccer, which allowed me to start the nonprofit was what was Blind Soccer Nation was my volunteer work that I do with the Department for the Blind. And those kids really helped me, put my life and all of my accomplishments into perspective because they really value everything, and they just see me as a superhero. And I'm just like, wow, like you guys, like they're like my fans, and they just pour so much life into me, and they help me realize, like, I'm not doing this for medals, I'm not doing this for money, like I'm doing this for the little boy that started his blindness journey, and he might not know where to go, he might not even know what was possible for him, even myself. That's what I'm doing it for. And I realized, like, that's what's really recharging me, and that's what's motivating me, and that's what's pushing me to go. So that's what I've been doing, and that's where I am now.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. So definitely tell me more about Blind Soccer Nation, kind of the inspiration behind starting that and what you do with that.
As I said, after coming off those games, those kids, really motivated me. And I started to realize, I started getting these different requests for doing different clinics. And I was like, I think I should probably formalize this, and turn this into a nonprofit so that we could properly, collect resources and just kind of help on a grander scale. Because one of the things that I noticed for us is that, of course, you know this, like in our community, we have like really high unemployment rates, really high obesity rates. We're not getting outside, we're not getting active. We have really high, um, like psychological issues. And one really interesting, tidbit, side note is me working at the hospital. I was talking to some of the clinicians and the nurses there, and he's like, you know what, and so we have never met, um, a clinician that was blind, but not only that, we don't get any in the one of the nurses saying in her 10 years of working there, she said she's never gotten a visually impaired, kid there. And I work in a psychological trauma unit for children. So is it that, vision impaired kids are, that's a protective factor? Being blind is a protective factor from psychological issues. You don't have these issues, or is it that we're having these issues and we're not making it to the proper places to seek help? And when I thought about that, that made my heart drop. And so, to me, that I feel like there's a bunch of kids out there who are going through things and are not saying anything, or nobody's directing them to this support. And that's a shame. And so that's what Blonde Soccer Nation, it allowed me to kind of like push that mission. So I've been able to combine my work as a clinical mental health counselor and soccer, and I create these clinics where I slip them. I have like a little Trojan horse, right? Of the soccer is the horse, but there's medicine in the middle, and I actually do a little bit of like mental health in there, and I'm teaching like resilience and emotional regulation through playing soccer, just getting outside and getting some sun and just getting moving, or teaching you how to take this ball and just play kick with somebody, just passing back and forth. You don't have to become a Paralympic athlete like me. You just, just get outside and get it moving, getting some endorphins going, like getting your heart rate up. And you would be surprised. Like when I drop that ball with the little rattle in it, everybody's just like, oh my gosh. It's the most amazing thing to see these kids. And I have to encourage them, like, hey, like put the blindfold on, put your cane down, let's just run around, let's be free. And it's the first time in a lot of our lives where we really like untethered and just dribbling the ball around and chasing this ball and playing with other blind people, right? We have other sports like goalball, but this is the only sport where we really have to like fly around untethered in this controlled environment. And we have to work as a team to strategize to get this ball in the net. And it is just miraculous. It is an amazing just experience that I've never experienced. So that's what Blind Soccer Nation do. We go all around the country, and we've collected resources to we've created our own blind soccer ball, and we've already given away over 500 blind soccer balls to blind and visually impaired kids and adults all over the country, mainly or rooted in Virginia, and we give them a free ball. So because the shame is right, they come out to a clinic and it's like, all right, bye, have a good day. It's like that was a shame to me the first time I did it, and I was like, no, 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 I need to change this. So I started raising money, and then everybody that shows up to a clinic, you leave home with the ball. You leave home with the understanding of like, if I do nothing else, I can kick this ball up against the wall when I'm bored.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
that's what we're doing right now.
Wow, that's fantastic. Just so many positive impacts I feel like on that type of work. So definitely congrats
Mhm.
on that, achievement and just everything you're doing with that initiative. That's amazing.
Thank you, thank you.
Definitely. Just a few more questions about your experience on the national blind soccer team. I know I have interviewed Charles Catherine, aka Daddio,
Yes,
Ricky Castaneda. Let's see, Ethan Coons,
yes.
Alvaro Mora Ariano. Also, have had Coach Laz as well. Have had on here. Just talk to me a little more about kind of your team, just like the team chemistry. I know you said you guys have kind of evolved and certainly improved, tournament to tournament, right?
Yeah, you almost got the whole team. Look, you're so close.
I know there's a few more I still need to interview, so but almost
Yes.
there.
Uh, Man, I love our team. Our team is like, To me, like coming in, like not going to blind school, I know, but not going to blind school, like being around, like getting thrusted into, because even for myself, right, I live in a sighted world. Like I'm operating as a blind person in a sighted world. So this is my first time getting like such a big group of other blind individuals and me learning how they're like, black people, we're very touchy-feely. We hug a lot, we touch a lot, and it's just, getting used to that, and then like all of the personalities, and you're just like, there's no way like that we would mesh, like if you met it, because we're just such a like a hodgepodge of just interesting characters. And but when we get on the field, those characteristics show up in different skills and different abilities and different attitudes and different play styles, and it works. And we ended up, over the years, through different interactions and obstacles and challenges, like we just meshed into this like really cool, cohesive team. And like we really become brothers, we become like so close because like we stay in the dormitories at the Olympic facility. So we're like we have roommates, we're roomies, and it's just like being in it's like being in college all over again. And it's just the coolest thing. It is so cool. So our team is insane and fun and a bunch of characters, and it's never a dull moment. It's just a cool experience.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten that sense from your other teammates I've gotten to talk to. Just a lot of
Mhm.
personalities, different ages, backgrounds. It's really interesting
Yes.
just to see a group that, that is starting to have more and more success, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, we're getting so good and we're understanding like, what's the best rotations, like who needs to be where, like who's good at what. Like one thing that we've learned that I'm naturally good at being center back, like I'm a menace, like I can shut down anybody in the world. I'm going to claim it now. Like I played some of the top strikers in the Americas, and like nobody can do anything with me. And I pride myself in that, even getting to the point where like we're in Mexico, and I'm just like, we're just like whooping butt, right? And I'm just shutting everybody down, no matter who has that ball. And then like, like even Charles telling me, like Daddy will tell me, like, he's like, Antoine, like keep it up. Like they're just asking. They keep saying like "Dónde está cuatro? ¿Dónde está cuatro?" Like where's number four? Where's number four? And I'm like, and that just boosted my ego so much. And I'm like, yeah, yeah. And it's like, they're like, because they're afraid of me. So they're like trying to figure out where I am because nobody can get past me. Because one, I'm still the fastest person in the country, definitely the fastest person in America. So that makes me the fastest person on any field at any time. And I hold that as a skill for myself. I hold that as a talent that I have. So I lean on that a lot. So even if you think you shook me, you really didn't. And because my recovery speed is really good. So I've been leaning on that.
Yep. Yep. Wow. I know you've definitely alluded to it, but what would you say like the keys are to being successful at blind soccer?
The biggest keys is you gotta have some heart. You gotta have a lot of heart because our sport is tough. Some of the things that make it tough is one, we train at altitude. So we train in at Colorado Springs. So we're at 5,000 feet all the time. So as you can imagine, you're training with this altitude. It's not a lot of air up there. And we're doing two-a-days. We're doing 2 3 hour practices a day. So you're really grinding. And so you gotta have a lot of fitness. So that means at home, you gotta be diligent, you gotta be disciplined. So you gotta keep up with your workouts, and you really gotta train on your own. You gotta get your touches on the ball. It's important that you hold yourself accountable or find a way for you to utilize your teammates to keep you accountable to what you're doing as well, because it's not something you can hide in the game. Because even in not to snitch on my teammates, like even when we got to Costa Rica, there's some, you could see us, we kind of struggle with our fitness. We might not be able to last only 6 minutes on the field or this on the field. Costa Rica's at altitude as well. And it's you know it's kind of hard for me because I come from such a high performance background. So I already established, the hard work ethic. And I would say that's the hardest thing for some of my teammates to understand. Like, whenever you train, you think you're in shape, you got to get into better shape. There's a whole nother level. Like, I even have that issue with myself when I first came into the sport. The altitude was kicking my butt. I thought I was in such shape. It's like, it doesn't matter how fast you are. When you get to soccer, it's not the same. It's like, yeah, the sprinting is the same, the speed is the same, but the amount of endurance, the speed endurance that you need, we would track our miles and we would do like around like 6 miles of practice. So you're doing 6 miles of sprinting, stopping and going, stopping and going, stopping and going.
Hmm.
So I had to even train myself how to get into better shape. So I would say that's the biggest keys. It's just, being willing to be disciplined, train hard, and and just be willing to just have some heart and have fun. Don't be afraid to go out there and try things because it's a new thing, it's new sensations, and you know you you're not going to be good when you first do it, but just keep at it. So I would say that's your keys for success.
Yeah, very well said. And I feel like a lot of those can be applied to a lot of different sports out there, just
Or
working.
just life.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Any tournaments you want to mention coming up here as far as blind soccer in 2026?
I think we have a tournament in September, but a lot of things for us right now is still like TBD and in question mark. So we're not 100% certain, especially with the world and as it is in peril right now.
Right.
So a lot of things are in flux. So really not really certain. Um, and then plus myself, like I'm trying to get myself to the summer, where I can like take some time off from school and and I'm still doing all these like blind soccer clinics. But as of right now, like we don't have a tournament like completely in stone right now.
Sure. Sure. Makes sense. Awesome. Okay. So before we put a bow on this episode, I did want to give you the chance, Antoine, to mention as far as like contact info, definitely Blind Soccer Nation, how folks can find out about that and maybe like social media too.
Yes, one of the biggest things like I would like to like convey is like, for anyone who's listening, like even if you know someone who's blind or visually impaired, like we're all kind of going through something, and soccer is definitely a good way to just an easy barrier to entry, right? You don't need anything, you just need a ball. So even if you just contact us, we can send you a ball no matter where you are. That's like one of the things that we pride ourselves in having the ability to do. So that's like Blind Soccer Nation. Add all the social media. So that's like at Blind Soccer Nation on Instagram, Facebook. You can reach us there on socials. My personal Instagram is Antoine, Antoine, the number four, and real, Real. And you can reach me there on Instagram and follow all of our things and keep up with our clinics and just hit me up if you want to know if we're going to be in your area or what's going on with your area. Oh, and you can reach our website, and that's blindsoccernation.org as well. And we actually have clubs where you can go through there, and we have like 5 clubs registered. So we have one in New Jersey, one coming on in Atlanta, here in Richmond, Texas, and I want to say there's one more. I can't remember where they are, but we're going to get one in DC too. So there's going to be soccer clubs popping up all over the place in your area because that's one of the things that we're doing. So you can reach me in all of those different ways. So Blind Soccer Nation everywhere. That's very easy to find.
Definitely. Yep. And as usual, I'll include links to all that contact info in the show notes so everyone has that there as well.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, again, we've been chatting with Antoine Craig here on Eyes Free Sports. And Antoine, really, really appreciate the time. Just love your positive attitude, your personality, just all the amazing stuff you're doing out there to help people in general, but even specifically, in the blind sports world and soccer world. So thank you so much for your time, and just again, hats off to you on everything.
Yes, sir. No, and thank you for everything that you're doing as well, helping getting the word out. So I really appreciate you having me.
Cool. Alrighty. Thanks so much. Before we officially wrap up this episode, I do want to offer up a tribute to Larry McDowell, who passed away on April 13th, 2026. Coach Larry is what many individuals called him. He was a coach, he was a mentor, wore a number of different hats, and just provided so much support to the blind and visually impaired community in South Florida. Specifically as a coach, so he was head coach of the Braille Bandits of Palm Beach County beat baseball team, and I had a chance to play for Coach Larry at the 2019 National Beat Baseball Association World Series, as well as in some regional tournaments around the Southeast. Even though Coach was tough on us as players, it was definitely well-intentioned. He wanted to get the most out of us to be not only the best blind athletes, but just the best human beings we could possibly be. And I'll always appreciate that. In addition, he served as president of the Braille Club, which is a social organization for the blind and visually impaired in South Florida. And he held that role for a number of years, in which he started just so many different programs, everything from fitness classes to technology seminars, to karaoke, to lunches, dinners, audio-described events. Pretty recently started a blind chorus. He really just always put others, first in his mind, and just wanted to do everything he possibly could to serve the blind and visually impaired community. So I'd like to offer my condolences to all those who knew and loved Larry, and I just wanted to say he will very much be missed, but will live on in our hearts forever. To hear more episodes of the Eyes Free Sports podcast and to subscribe, search for Eyes Free Sports on your favorite podcast platform or visit eyesfreesports.com. Be sure to follow the Eyes Free Sports podcast at facebook.com/eyesfreesports and on Twitter at Eyes Free Sports.